Okay. We are very pleased to host today Professor Ali Ansari, Professor of Iranian History, founder and director of the Institute of Iranian Studies at the University of St. Andrews, Scotland. Thank you. We welcome you, Mr. Ansari, and we thank you for accepting our proposal. Of course, I have to add that you are part of the family of the Shah of Iran, Mr. Pahlavi. But you still are not biased. You are a very
yeah. I mean, that's something that people have been raising more frequently, but it's not something really that many people know, I have to say. So anyway.
Okay, so let me remind you that after the 12-day war between Iran and Israel, that didn't bring any change, you advised us not to rush, telling me that change can now indeed come to Iran. So, do you think that this is the momentum right now, or we have to wait again a few years?
Well, I mean, you see, that actually highlights a point that I have always made, that we are always in a rush to see, what happens. We want immediate results. I mean, it's partly, I think, a sad reflection of our modern sensibilities that we are always in a hurry to get the sort of consequences. But as I mentioned last time, the consequences of the war would take time to digest. I think what we've seen over the last 2-3 weeks are in part a consequence of the war. I mean, of course, the war itself is not the cause of these problems. I mean, the problems are deeply structural, and they come from a deeper malaise within Iranian state and society. Okay, so what the war did is it basically exaggerated these problems. It made them more visible. And then what you see is, after a few months, because the state has no answers. I mean, this is the problem. The fundamental problem is it has no answers to the many economic and political problems facing the country. And then, of course, on December the 28th, for one reason or another, the currency goes to a certain level and it breaks into a new revolt. And I should say, actually, I think it's much better for us to talk about this as an uprising rather than a protest. I mean, it clearly was much more organized and much more violent from the beginning. And by the way, this sort of argument that you see in some reports that the government showed great restraint to begin with is nonsense. I mean, I can tell you that from some fairly good first-hand evidence, actually, that we have of people that live fire ammunition was used pretty early on in the protest. So something very serious broke out here. And I think that, yes, again, we face this situation where the immediate protest has been effectively contained. I'm not going to say suppressed. I'm going to say contained. Okay, it's a different word. But that all the basic problems have not been solved, and in many ways have been made much worse. So the uprising, if you will, the protest, whatever we want to call it, is symptomatic of the deeper political and economic problems in the country, and they will have just made it worse. So the question mark now for us is, have they contained them sufficiently to keep going for several years? Or, as I think is probably more likely, actually, they have only managed to put the lid on it, maybe for a very temporary period. Because as we see at the moment, there's still an internet blackout. They still haven't really been able to bring normality back, and I can't see any form of normality returning to the country in the near future, certainly. I mean, the level of casualties and the level of violence is so high that there is a lot of resentment and anger among Iranians, and this will not be very easy to deal with.
But despite, the regime, the theocratic regime is being shaken all the times during all these decades and all the uprisings from 2009 to 2022. It doesn't collapse. Why? Does it have to do with the opposition, that there is not a coherent, united opposition?
I think part of it is that. Part of it is that their core is bound together by a sort of a very clear doctrine. But again, I would caution analysts on this point. What you see is not what you get. Okay, and what you see on the surface is not always what. So, let's be honest about it. Prior to this uprising on the 28th of December, most of us thought nothing is happening. I mean, everyone said, they have contained it. The situation is not good. We are going towards basically an economic collapse. I mean, that is basically the trajectory of travel. But there is no popular anger on the street. Even I said it 2 days before the uprising happened. I said, it's amazing that the dollar is now 142,000 tumans. That's 1,420,000 reals to the dollar. I mean, think about it. In 1979, when the Shah left, it was 70 reals to the dollar. Okay, so this is a very dramatic collapse, and we didn't see anything happening. And all of a sudden, nobody predicted it. Nobody assessed it. Suddenly, you have this uprising, an uprising that was so severe that it has required maybe the most extraordinary level of violence against the Iranian population. Now, every time we look at this, we say, the state has survived. But what the state is winning is a series of Pyrrhic victories, I put it to you, yeah? And these Pyrrhic victories are coming back to haunt it, and it has not been able to completely contain and suppress these protests we are not looking, nobody now says the Islamic Republic has a future. I mean, nobody says that. Even in Iran, people are not saying Islamic Republic has a future.
So maybe the procedure is going on, and then in 2 years later, we can see this collapse. I mean, the procedure is ongoing.
That's what I mean. I mean, you see, what you're asking is an assessment by an analyst. I'm a historian, okay? So I look at the past and I see how the past, the trajectories to the future. I'm not looking, I don't look at the surface of things. I don't say, it looks all great. When you look at, I'm writing a piece at the moment, and I say, when you look at any conflict, how do you know when the opponent will break? Yeah. How do you know the moment when the morale of the other side breaks? It's very difficult to assess. It's very difficult to assess. We have to look at the various different factors, and we make an assessment. And it's true that, the regime has locked itself down into almost like a siege mentality. I mean, it has the weapons, it's looking. But what we have to accept is that the only way, in some ways, the regime will survive now is to go down the route, effectively, of North Korea, to lock itself down, to be at war with its own society. And, there are some people who say that, that is possible. I mean, maybe it is, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not really a functional state in the way that Iranians would be used to. If they are completely under control, like a North Korean system, where they have no real connection, it will be extraordinarily difficult for them without serious structural reform and some sort of concession within the system for the country at the moment, not to suffer an economic collapse. And we see this now. And if you talk to economists, even before the 12-day war, they were saying, if you continue on this path, we will not be able to provide gas, electricity, water to the citizens of this country. And you see it happening. I mean, it's there. So, the question is, how long can society tolerate this? And how long can the repressive state impose this? And again, these are not matters that we can predict with any accuracy. It could last, yes, it could last, but it could also break tomorrow. I mean, this is the problem.
It was a surprise that we also watched huge demonstrations pro the government, the Islamistic government, and also we saw many people, thousands of people gathering.
And how do you know there were many people in support of the government?
From the media.
And which media is this?
I don't know, the international.
Well, I mean, my point is there's an internet blackout.
Yeah.
And the regime is putting out its own imagery of what's going on. It's being very selective.
From the one side, we know that there are many thousands of arrests and deaths from both sides, of course. And then we have this case coming from Iran that there were also pro-government demonstrations.
Yeah, I don't doubt there were, but in terms of the numbers, the numbers would have been very carefully curated to give you an impression of that. There are no foreign journalists on the street in Tehran. There is no way of us independently verifying it. And I would also challenge you on this notion where you say that there has been casualties on both sides. The casualties are very uneven, by the way. They're very uneven. Yes, there are security officials.
Which is the situation? Which is the situation then now in Iran? If we can say by large, which is the situation right now formed, which is?
I think the situation at the moment is very unclear because we have no access really to the clear information. We are getting information out from people, and this is the other thing, people who are leaving the country. I mean, this is not an indication of a country in good health when people are leaving the country and bringing evidence out with them. We've seen some very, very vastly inflated numbers of casualties, but the regime itself has accepted that at least 3,000 or 4,000 people have died. Of course, they say 3,000 or 4,000 people have died because the protesters killed them all. Okay, I mean, I don't think you would believe that, right? I mean, I don't, right? It depends who has the guns. We accept that the regime has the guns and the protesters do not have the guns. Yes, that's not entirely, you know, obviously some protesters had guns or whatever, but not on the scale that the regime has. The balance of casualties is very, very one-sided against the protesters, and it's quite clear that they use live ammunition against peaceful protesters very early on. So we ought to be careful not to buy into a regime narrative that it is trying to, that it does two things, very much like the Russians do. The first thing they do is they sow doubt. They tell you it's that. They say there were Mossad and CIA agents running this protest. Now, I ask you, back in after the war in June, they said they arrested 20,000 Mossad agents in Iran. 20,000. Okay, you and I know this is nonsense, okay, but nevertheless, let's say 20,000. If you arrest 20,000 Mossad agents, but they're still organizing a protest in January 2026, either you're not doing a very good job, you know, either the system is not very good, or you're lying. I mean, it's one of the two, right? So, you know, I think those people who argue that these are all foreign inspired, or these are all, I mean, a lot of these are regime talking points, and you have to be very, very careful about accepting them until we get some form of independent verification of what is going on. Now, if the regime was that confident of its story, there would not be an internet blackout. There would be journalists allowed in to come and verify it, and they have not done it. They have not done it, and they have not done it because they are not clear on it, and they don't know what they're doing, and they quite worried that, of course, people will come in and see what has happened. You know, which by all accounts, people who are Iranians who are leaving the country are saying that there are bodies everywhere. There are bodies everywhere. So I think it's, you know, I think we need to have a very realistic assessment of what's going on.
The analysts are wondering whether Reza Pahlavi, the oldest son of the last Shah, could be a solution. He declared his readiness to return to Iran. What would his return mean? And would he be acceptable by the majority of the Iranian people?
At the moment, it has to be said he is the only game in town. Okay, I mean, we cannot deny it, that there is a huge level of Pahlavi nostalgia going on in the country. The question is whether he has the capacity, the ability, and the tools in order to, you know, take advantage of this moment. Now, his supporters will say, yes, he does. Okay. The key is, I think, that he has to take certain actions to clarify the situation going forward. My view is he has to build many, many more bridges with other elements in the opposition to be a much more unifying figure. And I think he needs much more clarity on what the next steps are. Okay. And I certainly think also he needs to move out of America. I mean, I think he needs to go closer to the region, and he says he's planning to go back. I don't think he's planning to go back to the country anytime imminently soon, but then who knows? You know, a lot of things have happened that have surprised me. I did not think, for instance, while I wrote about this, and I wrote about this on my Substack, there is a tremendous Pahlavi nostalgia going on in the country. You know, there is a tremendous monarchical nostalgia going on in the country. That is a reality, and we should not ignore it. And the question is now really, you know, how that can be translated into real political power. And this is a very difficult question to answer at the moment. It's a very difficult question to answer at the moment. If, for instance, you know, there are no serious breaks in the political leadership in Iran at the moment. And at the moment, you're right, we don't see it. You know, it's not coming through now. But we are already seeing, for instance, some defections. We are already seeing some defections, but it's early days yet. These things take time. Now, you know, we also have the other factor, by the way, of Donald Trump. So we don't know what Trump is going to do. And Trump could add a whole new dimension to the whole effect. But what I will tell you, and this is an element of the shock that has been inflicted on Iranians, is that many Iranians who would never before have countenanced foreign intervention in the internal politics of their country are now accepting it, you know, now calling for it, even people in Iran. And this is unheard of, right? Normally, Iranians would not call for a foreign power to come in. Yeah.
The return of Pahlavi would mean the restoration of monarchy or a transition to a more
Not
democratic.
necessarily. I mean, he says, and he's been very explicit about this actually, and this is part of the problem in some ways, that he's been quite ambiguous. You know, what he said is that I am simply here to facilitate a transition. We will have a referendum, and the referendum
Very
will be
vague. It's very
Yeah,
vague.
I mean, my point is there, and it may well be that you get a referendum, whatever. My own view is that what we should be doing actually is drawing in the United Nations. I mean, I have to say, Antonio Guterres this morning made a comment about Iran I thought was wholly unsatisfactory. But I mean, there you are. But the UN could easily come in and be helped to monitor a referendum, for instance, a proper referendum, and people can choose. People can choose what sort of government they want, whether it's a republic or a constitutional monarchy, I should say, right? I mean, it should be, if it's going to be a monarchy, it should be a constitutional monarchy. That's my preference. But either one of those two systems, okay? And what we can say, I think, is that nobody in Iran is going to ask for an Islamic system of government.
Yes.
Maybe 10%, maybe 10%.
So because the Iranian society is very divided, so you think that 20% is pro the Khamenei's regime?
No, 10%, I said. I said 10%.
10%. And yes.
Yeah, I mean, and they have guns. I mean, if you ask me, you know, what is the strength? I mean, they have 10%. 10% is maybe 9 million people, right?
Tell me something. The regime transition would be easier if the present government would be transformed to a more democratic form of regime?
Yeah.
Or do you think?
I mean, the easiest way to do it, you know, the easiest way to do it, which
Why
I'm
they
sorry.
do not do it? Why they do not do it?
Well, because people, you're asking people to be rational. I mean, you're asking people to provide a rational development at a time when there's been a lot of bloodshed. I mean, you know, this is the most sensible way of doing it, is to say that we have a constitution of the Islamic Republic, we take away the Islamic element of it, and we turn it into a republic, and it becomes a republic, and we have a constitution, and we modify the constitution that we have. You know, the constitution that we have, if you get rid of all the Islamic elements of it, you know, allows freedom of speech and all this, and you know, I mean, freedom of gathering, whatever. It's just that it's never been implemented. Nobody ever pays any attention to it. So you need to basically implement it. But, you know, there are many different, you know, we have at least two constitutions in modern Iranian history. There should be a means. It should not be beyond the wit of Iranians to sort out some sort of constitution among them on that sense. And I think, you know, this needs to be much, much more explicit. I mean, it needs to be much, much more explicit that the current system does not work. The current system is making the country into a desert. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, we're running out of water. They are running out of water. So, you know, a new system has to be found. Now, the ideological diehards don't accept it. The ideological diehards have this belief that Khamenei is leading the people like Moses through the desert, and this desert is something that we all have to suffer until we get to the promised land. That's what they believe. It's you know, it's a classic mythology, right? But the vast majority of people, I would say 90% of the people, do not believe this anymore. They say we are fed up being in the desert. You know, we want to get something. We want to have a normal life. You know, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to go and visit my relatives. I want to be able to access the internet. It's very basic things. I mean, we in the West, there are many people in the West, I have to say, who give the Islamic Republic of Iran far too much of a benefit of the doubt. Far too much of the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I would encourage many of these people who are sympathetic or have given them the benefit of the doubt to go and live in Iran for a few months and see how they feel.
So why Donald Trump did not finally attack as he had promised or declared? Of course, we know that his priorities right now are Greenland, maybe.
And Greenland,
and it was before that Venezuela. Do you think that he has to attack? This is maybe the only the only way for a regime change.
I think personally, you know, I find it very difficult. And I mean, you know, people say, you know, would you want to, you know, are we going to see a military attack or not? I mean, I'm, you know, my problem with any sort of military intervention is that it makes things very, very uncertain, right? So if they are going to go down that route, and I still feel that actually something will be done. And I tell you why. Because first of all, the Iranian regime is almost provoking it. I think the Iranian regime sort of feels that they will benefit from an attack by Trump. I think yet again the Iranian regime is miscalculating, okay? And the reason why is because I think Trump is gradually being persuaded, and let's be honest, his mind is not made up. You know, one day he thinks this, one day he's on Venezuela, one day he's on Greenland, but the facts are these, that they are moving a lot of assets into the region, yeah? There are 2 aircraft carriers moving in, there is a lot of aircraft moving in. Everything is indicating that the Americans are preparing for a slightly longer campaign than we had thought. Okay, and this will potentially be very, very serious. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But there are also other measures that the Americans and the West can take. And a number of these are to do with financial sanctions, but not just financial sanctions. The reason why I'm not entirely content with financial sanctions is we, in the European Union or the UK or America, we tend to put these sanctions on them and then we think, we've done it and, we can go back and forget about it. You need to actively pursue what is good. You need to be very active in your pursuit of this and to find out where these trails of money are going. To my mind, the way to put pressure on the Islamic Republic is to follow the money, actually. I mean, that's the way to do it. And I've always said that. And if you follow the money and you see, you suffocate them, that's the way it starts to have a deep effect on them. At the same time, because Trump has said he's going to do something, and he likes a lot of, he likes it to be very visible. I suspect that we are going to see some form of military attack at some stage. I don't know what will happen next. The tragedy is, as I said to you earlier, is that many Iranians would probably quite welcome it at the moment.
But there are analysts who say that if there will be an intervention by West and USA especially, then people will gather around the Khamenei's government.
And which analysts
So
are
the
these?
government is expecting that in order to have the people.
That's what they expect, because they thought they would get it after the 12-day war, didn't they? And what happened there? I mean, I wrote about this at the time. I mean, there are many analysts, there are many analysts there. There are many Iran experts. I personally, I think that they're a mixed bag. Okay, a lot of these Iran analysts don't even speak Persian, and I'm not really that bothered about it. Okay, but they come out with, and of course they always come out with these very structured, and they say when a foreign country attacks another country, there's always a rally around the flag effect. Okay, it's like basically it's what I call undergraduate politics. If this happens, then this will happen. There are a lot of variations on that theme. That's my problem. If you look at after the 12-day war, what was the reaction actually of people? There was a rally around, people did rally around Iran, but they didn't necessarily rally around the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, there's a difference. But then the second thing is, how long did that last? Not very long. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen this extraordinary uprising that happened 2 weeks ago. I mean, my point is that if the Islamic Republic of Iran believes that people will rally around Khamenei after he has killed, I don't know, anything between 5,000 and 10,000 people in a slaughter, which I have to tell you, by the way, is the greatest concentrated single slaughter of Iranians in 150 years. Okay, don't have any illusions about it. This is one of the biggest levels of brutality that has been inflicted upon Iranians in 150 years. The Shah didn't come close, by the way. The Shah did not come close to this level of violence against the Iranians. Okay, which is partly why there's Pahlavi nostalgia, by the way. Okay, they have this sort of thing. So my point is that people who say that tend to have, in my view, a conclusion in mind, and then they provide the argument to support that conclusion. And I don't think that is actually a good way of doing analysis. And things are much more contingent and much more varied. And I would dare say, after this level of brutality against the Iranians, the idea that the Iranian society is going to rally around Khamenei is I think fanciful. I think fanciful. Of course, the regime will put this out. I mean, the regime will do everything it can to provide this. But I suspect actually, no, the real danger is that, a prolonged uprising will take place, which will not be to the good of anyone, to be honest. But that's basically the way the country is going anyway. It's either going to happen quickly or it's going to happen slowly.
Now that the uprising is slowing down, do you predict that we will pass a period that things would seem calm and then we will see a new uprising, and then
Yeah, I mean, that's very possible. Yeah, I mean, that's very possible. I mean, there will be a period of calm. Our sources in Iran already say that they're preparing for the second round, by the way. So, I mean, that's very, it's very peculiar. But I mean, that's the situation. This is clearly something more serious. This is not a casual protest for a week or 2 weeks. This is perhaps more similar to what happened in 2009, but 2009 was about a stolen election. It was really about internal politics. This is about something more serious. So my suspicion is you will see a period of relative calm. Everyone, you and me, will all say, oh, the regime is very strong. And then bingo, it will trigger off again. Something will happen. I mean, it could be Trump, it could be something else. Yeah. I mean, the main point is that the underlying economic conditions have not been resolved. Okay, the currency is still collapsing. Okay, and this is not to do, by the other thing that people will tell you is it has all to do with sanctions. No, sanctions make it worse, but the fundamental problems are internal. It's about corruption, about a kleptocracy. Okay, these are not things that are alien to European countries, by the way. We've all had it in the past, all right? So it's a question of political development and political maturity, okay, in terms of developing a civil society and a democratic structure. And at the moment, there is nothing in Iran that prevents this sort of corruption going on.
The military and defense capability of Iran after the 12-day war with Israel is in which state right now? I mean, if USA and Israel attack at the same time, which is the state of the regime right now?
Well, I mean, at the moment, they don't have control over their airspace, do they? I mean, this is the problem. They haven't provided. I mean, what people say, but again, it's what people say, is they've rebuilt their missile, their missile deterrence. I don't know how true that is. Some people say it is, some people say it isn't. But what we are fairly certain about is they still don't have control of they don't have proper air defense systems to and basically, the Israelis and the Americans, certainly the Israelis, showed that the Iranian air defenses are nothing to write home about. And we just saw what happened in Venezuela, by the way. I mean, they had all these Russian defenses. I don't know if they had Chinese as well or whatever, but they obviously didn't work. So my point is that Iran's approach to this is, if you attack us, we will turn the Middle East into a desert. That's what their argument is. But that suggests that they don't have good air defense. They only have an offensive capability in order to try and deter. And this is all about deterring. And I quite see that. And I obviously, if something like this happens, the Americans certainly will have to plan it extremely carefully. I would presume to ensure that Iran's missile deterrence is effectively hamstrung. So there would need to be several days, I think, of bombardment to wear down the missile capability before they do anything else. But the Americans can do it. I mean, if they decide to do it, they can do it. Okay, I mean, the Americans have the capacity to do it, but the problem is at the moment they did not have the resources in region in the area to be able to do it last week. And again, it all depends on whether Trump decides to do it. I mean, he may decide not to do it.
And the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin, yes, who is betting on the survival of the Iranian regime, is lacking in willingness to support the regime.
But he's always had lacking will. I mean, he's a useless ally, isn't he, really, when you think about it? I don't know what you guys think about him, but I mean, I think he's, even during in 2023, when there were the missile exchanges, going, I mean, Putin did nothing. And, he's now putting himself about as a sort of a peacemaker between Netanyahu and Iran. I mean, good luck. I mean, I can't see him really doing that. He hasn't really done much. What he has done, by the way, is he seems to have supplied a lot of equipment for the repression of the population. I mean, that they did bring in equipment to do that, apparently. But in terms of defense, for an external attack and stuff, he's actually shown himself to be fairly limited. I mean, obviously, because he's very preoccupied with his own war in Ukraine. I mean, what is he? He doesn't have Russia is importing North Korean soldiers to do their fighting for them. I mean, what do you think they have enough capacity to go around helping other people?
There is a big discussion, even in the Israeli medias, about the intervention of Mossad. In which level is it in Iran right now?
I wouldn't know. Okay. I mean, you're asking me a question I wouldn't know. I think some of the Israeli media has been very reckless. Some of the, and it is Israeli media, by the way. It's not like the official, it's not like the Israelis are coming out themselves and saying, yes, we've done this. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if this Mossad, I mean, the Iranians themselves have admitted that the Mossad has penetrated their security and intelligence establishment. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think it's as widespread as, I mean, as I said to you earlier, they said they arrested 20,000 Mossad agents in June. So, I mean, 20,000? I mean, you really, I mean, how big is Mossad? Do you think they have 20,000 agents? And if 20,000 Iranians have signed up to work for Mossad, that's not a great sign, you know? But if they've arrested 20,000, are there still another 20,000 in Iran? I mean, I don't know. You know, I mean, this is, you know, it's not a good reflection on the Islamic Republic if that is the case. But I don't think it's that widespread. I think basically what the Iranian dissidents are getting encouragement from is from the public relations, you know, going on the encouragement coming from abroad.
After the collapse of the resistance axis, which is the geopolitical role of Tehran right now? Where would you pose it?
I mean, I think they're extremely weak on that front. I mean, I don't think they have any. I mean, even during the 12-day war, they complained, obviously, that Hezbollah could do nothing. I mean, Hezbollah basically just gave them a note of support, but didn't do anything. I think their whole regional strategy has collapsed. And I mean, people know that. And I think the loss of Syria was enormous for them. I mean, they pretend all these things are fine, but I think that, you know, the last 2 years have certainly not been good for the Islamic Republic, and the whole Gaza war has been a disaster for them.
I know you don't want me to ask, but do you have any communication with Reza Pahlavy?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Not at all. So you don't know which are his real ambitions and what he's planning exactly?
If you do your research properly, you'll find out that our families don't really speak.
So a last comment, make your last comment, and then you will be free because you're very busy.
What's my comment?
Your
You
last
want me to
comment?
comment?
Yes, I want your last comment for Iran before leaving.
I think the trajectory for Iran is clear in one. It's going in one direction at the moment, unless they change direction very dramatically. And my entire thesis is this: that the Iranian state, the Islamic Republic of Iran, faces a very Soviet dilemma. It has got to the stage now where if it reforms, it dies, and if it doesn't reform, it dies. Okay, I mean, the problem is the Islamic Republic in its current configuration has no future, and I think most people now are aware of that. The question is what comes next, and you know, I will leave that to other much more learned people to tell you.
Mr. Ansari, we thank you so much for the discussion.
Thank you.